Okay, we're connected. For some reason, the announcement I put up didn't make it through. So I don't know if people are going to find this stream. I just managed to get an announcement up about half an hour ago. YouTube keeps changing their interface around, confusing old boomers like me. Mm. There's a few people have found the stream. Numbers are a little lower than they usually are by now. I'm not sure what happened. I tried to put up an announcement yesterday, and I thought it was up, and when I went in to activate the stream, it wasn't there. Okay, a few more people are trickling in. Some people have found it. We'll press on regardless. A couple of minutes yet to go.
It's 6 o'clock.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. So this evening's stream is continuing the series on the Four Noble Truths, the basic framework of the Buddhist teaching. And we're up to the third noble truth today, the truth of dukkha nirodha, the cessation of dukkha, the end of suffering. Um, one of the kind of formal structural questions that can arise is that the order of the truths seems can seem a bit odd. That we have here the third truth, which is the end goal, and then the way to reach the goal is only given in the fourth truth. It seems that the structure the Buddha was using was a deliberate reference to a formula found in Vedic medical texts, which describes a disease in four clauses. The describes the symptoms of the disease or how it's expressed in the body, the causes of the disease, whether it's diet or whatever it might be, and then the third is the prognosis or the expected outcome, and the fourth and final is the treatment. So, by a way of analogy, the Buddha is sometimes called the great physician, and by way of analogy, we see life or existence itself as a disease, and the symptoms are described in the first truth. Birth, sickness, old age, and death, grief, lamentation, despair, etc. Then in the second truth, we get the cause. Now, what causes this dysfunction? And this is the arising of craving in the mind. And then in the third truth, we get the prognosis or the possible outcome, which states, yes, there is a cure. It is possible to be healed of this disease. There is a way out of suffering. And this third truth has a very particular place in the teaching. If we just take the first two truths by themselves, without the third truth, then the teaching becomes very similar to a pessimistic philosophy of existentialism or stoicism. Basically, that you're going to suffer, and that's all there is to it. So, and many people throughout the ages and even today would hold this view, and the only answer they can come up with is the Stoic one of just bear it, just deal with it. This is the way it is. But the Buddha takes it a step beyond and says, yeah, that's the way things are, but it doesn't have to be that way. We can make an end of suffering. It also seems to me that the third truth is the only one that at the outset must be taken on faith. The first truth is susceptible to reason. We can examine it critically and find good reason to support the truth of it. The second truth is easily borne out by experience and by introspection. It makes a kind of intuitive sense. And the fourth truth is, at one level, is simply a sensible, practical guide for living. But the third truth, to say that there is an end to suffering, is a statement that cannot be proven by reason and is not borne out by experience before the stage of stream entry, when one has a glimpse of nibbana. It can be partially verified by experience when we see that suffering is lessened when there's less craving. When we're not driven by craving and desire, we see the mind is more at ease. This is a partial vindication by experience of the truth. But the Buddha is not talking about just making things a little bit better or easier he's talking. He's giving us a very radical promise that there is an end to suffering. There is a transcendental element, lokuttara. This is a Pali word which literally means beyond the world, and it's often translated as transcendental. And this is the transcendental element in Buddhism, that there is that which is beyond the conditioned realm. So the end of suffering is nibbana, or the unconditioned asankata, and it's something that's very difficult. It's actually impossible to speak about in a positive way. You'll find in the Buddhist scriptures there's relatively little discussion of nibbana, and when it is discussed, it's in passages that are trying to be precise and technical. It's spoken of almost entirely in negative terms, such as the well-known passage in the Udana, "There is, O monks, an unborn and undying and unformed and uncreated," etc. All negatives in Pali with the letter A. Ajata, unborn; asankata, unconditioned; and amata, undying, and so on. So we can say what nibbana is not. Otherwise, in passages that are more literary or poetic in tone, metaphors are used, such as the other shore, the safe, secure refuge, the island. These are not intended to be taken literally. We have plenty of indications in the scriptures that nibbana is something that is not susceptible to description or reason. This is because the qualities of speech and thought are conditioned, and we're dealing here with the unconditioned. There is, for example, the Buddha's discussion with the wanderer Vacchagotta in the Majjhima Nikaya, where the Buddha is asked by the wanderer to clarify the state of the Tathagata, meaning the enlightened one, the state of the Tathagata after death. And this is kind of a roundabout way about speaking about nibbana. And Vacchagotta asks, does the Tathagata exist after death? And the Buddha says, that does not fit the case. He doesn't quite say yes or no, but he gives a negative that the question is, which implies that the question itself is malformed. He says that does not fit the case. So Vacchagotta asks again, then does the Tathagata cease to exist upon death? And the Buddha says that does not fit the case. Does the Tathagata both exist and not exist after death? No, that does not fit the case. Does the Tathagata neither exist nor not exist? That does not fit the case. And this structure of the four questions, sometimes called the tetralemma, is again, the Buddha is replicating a structure, a thought structure from the broader culture. The Indian logical system was independently derived from the Greek system, which our modern Western thought is largely based on the Greek logic, which is based on a binary logic with the law of the excluded middle. It's goes back at least to Aristotle. But the Indian logic is four-pole, and it allows either A, not A, both A and not A, neither A nor not A, to put it in formal logic script. So there we have the Buddha saying that it doesn't fit into any logical category, the description of the Tathagata state after death, which is parinibbana, or the entrance into the unconditioned. So we can't say it's either existence or non-existence or both or neither, because all these terms do not apply. In the formula of the Four Noble Truths itself, we've seen that with the first truth, the Buddha said that the aspirant should strive to understand it thoroughly, abhijanati. In the second truth, the Buddha said that he should strive to abandon it. And in this third truth, the Buddha uses a different verb, sachikaroti. One should strive to sachikaroti, the third truth. Sachikaroti is a different kind of understanding. It's translated as to experience for oneself, to know directly. Now, this is different than understanding. It cannot be encompassed by the mind, but it can be experienced. It can be known in this other way, by direct knowing, by direct experience, but it's not grasped or understood in the sense of abhijanati. It's also stated here that just where this craving ceases, then suffering ceases. And this is a terse formula that is expanded and explicated in the Paticca Samuppada, the dependent origination, where the arising of craving engenders a cascade of other effects through clinging, becoming, birth, sickness, old age, and death. So all this dukkha arises from craving. And if craving doesn't arise, then the dukkha also does not arise. In terms of the process that goes on in the mind in meditation, specifically referring here to vipassana meditation, where one is examining minutely the process of samsaric becoming on a moment-by-moment level, it can be seen that how this process of dependent origination works on a momentary level, that the mind is constantly craving for the next object. And with the clear sight of vipassana, the object is seen to be to have the three characteristics. It's seen to be empty, it's of self-substance, of self-essence, svabhava. It's seen to be impermanent, anicca, and it's seen to be imperfect or flawed or suffering or unsatisfying, dukkha. And for one who's not mindful, then this is not grasped, and the mind does feel unsatisfied. It's impossible to satisfy this craving of the mind with objects because of the dukkha inherent in the object. So the mind then immediately goes into next very next moment, it goes into craving for another object. And this craving, in a sense, generates the objects. And the mind is continually following this cascade of, of object after object, driven by desire. But with a clear sight of insight, the unsatisfying nature of the objects are clearly seen, and this impulse, this craving, which is very deep rooted, begins to wane, and the impulse fades away. And this is the stages of nibbana and viraga. That is a disenchantment with the process, and then the dispassion for the process. And this allows the process to cease. And when the process of grasping at objects ceases, samsara ceases. And when samsara ceases, then the mind can alight upon the unconditioned. In the words of Buddhaghosa, it does that which it has not done since beginningless time and alights upon non-occurrence. So it just stops doing that. You just stop. So as the Buddha said to Angulimala, I've stopped long ago. When are you going to stop? So with the realization of nibbana, sachi karoti, with that penetrating entrance into the experience of nibbana at stream entry, then everything is changed in the depth. It's a turning in the depth of the being, because now the faith has been vindicated. Nibbana is seen, even though at the stage of stream entry we could say it's really just a glimpse. It's like the curtain parts, and there is an unconditioned, and there's still more work to do to attain to a full entrance into nibbana at arahantship. But the process is then underway. So that's why one who has attained stream entry is referred to as seka, a learner or a student, and it's like the path really begins at that moment. And this is the experience of the third noble truth. So we have thus far in the explication of the truths, we have the problem of existence, of birth and death, and we have the reason that occurs is because of the craving in the mind, and now we have the resolution of that, which is to stop craving, to stop doing samsara. And then the mind is liberated and is no longer running around samsarati in the wheel of dependent origination, from birth, chasing from moment to moment and from birth to birth. And that leaves us for next time a discussion of the path. And this has been a rather short discourse this evening, because really there's not much that really can profitably be said about nibbana, the unconditioned, without confusing the issue. So I think I'll leave it there, and we'll see if anything comes up in the chat for questions. So far the chat is empty. I hope it's working. I'll try put something in. Yeah, I put something up. I can enter the chat. Yeah, yeah, I'm not. Usually we have more chit chat going on. I don't know if there's something screwy going on with the YouTube chat function. I'm not seeing anything in there. I'll wait. I'll wait a couple of minutes and see if anybody pops in with a question or a comment. But I'm beginning to suspect that the chat function is not working. Even if you don't have a question, would you just put in hello or something? Just somebody do that just to test that it's possible. No, I'm not seeing anything, so I suspect it's broken. Such as dukkha, such is the nature of YouTube samsara. The chat function has ceased without remainder. So I'll leave it at that for now, and be back next week, and hopefully I'll have the announcement up ahead of time. Like I usually try and get them up on Wednesday. And I apologize again for some reason. I did put an announcement in, but it didn't show up. So I may have done something wrong. They've changed the interface around again. Okay, I'll take my leave.